Well, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Karen Dietz, and the program today, the recording that we're making today, is all about business storytelling and how to be more successful. Now, whether you are a seasoned business storytelling professional, if you're new to the field, or if you are a business who's interested in learning more about business storytelling, then this is the webinar or the recording for you, right? Because we're going to talk about a number of different things that we've learned over the years that will allow you to be more successful in business storytelling. So here I am, and I love doing this kind of work and talking with others in the field because I really love advancing the power of business storytelling across the globe. And I want you to be more successful, you know, in your work and your approaches to business storytelling. And I look forward to learning from you because I'm going to share what we've learned here in the United States, but you all are in Russia and it's a different culture and there are different ways that you're going to be working. And I just welcome you to the community of business storytelling and look forward to ongoing exchanges. So here I am. Right. I'm Dr. Karen Dietz. I'm the best-selling author of Business Storytelling for Dummies that was co-written with a colleague, Lori Silverman. I'm a coach, a trainer, a speaker, and I also am on the faculty of the University of California, San Diego, where I teach business communication and business storytelling for anyone who wants to join me in the class. And so what's next? That was a little bit about me, but here's one of my favorite quotes. And it is, you know, no chief or tribal leader has ever handed out statistical reports, charts, or lists of facts to explain where the group is headed or what it must do. And I love that because, you know, that's what we do in business. We love to say, oh, here are the reports, the charts, the list of facts that, you know, explain what needs to happen. And actually, that only makes a very small impact. But storytelling makes a big impact when you can share what's in the reports and those charts and those lists of facts through a story. You're much more impactful. What I also love is that this quote is from Peg Neuhauser, from her book, Corporate Legends and Lore, The Power of Storytelling as a Management Tool. And it was written in 1993. So Peg was like way ahead of her time because the other books around business storytelling that really made an impact in the business world were published in 2000, 2001 by Annette Simmons and Steve Denning. Peg was really a pioneer in the field and an early one. So she recognized early on, right, the power of storytelling. Now, today I'm going to tackle three topics. I'm going to talk about mindsets. What mindsets do we need to be really successful in business storytelling? And there might be some that surprise you. I'm also going to talk about best practices. These are just a few things that we've learned over the last 20 years as business storytelling professionals. Because when we started out, we had great ideas, we had a little bit of experience, but we've learned so much over the years. And then last, I'm going to share some tools and resources that might be able to help you in your work. So let's get started. First of all, I want to say that there's good news and bad news about business storytelling. The good news is that business storytelling is agnostic. That means it can be applied anywhere and everywhere in business. It crosses all industries, sectors, markets, functions, and roles in an organization. So what's the bad news? Is that storytelling is agnostic. It crosses all industries, sectors, markets, functions, and roles in an organization. So sometimes it's really hard to figure out what you want to focus on and what projects you want to tackle first, because it can work with people on the shop floor all the way up to the CEO position. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how to think about storytelling and its application in businesses so that it's less confusing. And, also the purpose of this whole recording is that sometimes it's hard to figure out what you need to know or what you already know and what you need to know more of, or how to hone and improve your skills. So I hope that by the end of our time together, you'll have some good ideas in all of those areas. So my story is, now this is not really a story, this is just like a few facts about me, but it sets a context for why I'm sharing with you the things that I'm sharing with you. So I started out in academics, I have a PhD in folklore, and I learned to be very, very boring doing that. And I also learned about storytelling, but strictly from a very academic place. I had to collect stories, diagram them, preserve them, sort of understand them. But it wasn't really, very interesting until I connected with some sacred storytellers where I experienced them telling stories with groups of people and the power that was in that experience and how hungry we are for amazing, wonderful, inspiring stories. I also spent 10 years in the human potential movement where I learned all about change and how people change and why people change. And then also I've learned consulting and training over the many years. In my early days, I was in technology, financial services, and working with leaders. I launched my business storytelling practice in 2000 because I saw, excuse me, there was a real need. And I'm going to keep sipping my coffee because I'm talking and my throat's getting dry. Anyway, so I launched the business because I saw a real need and I had all experience and training in the area, so why not? And since then, I've done business storytelling work with a wide variety of businesses, different applications, and in many different industries. So it's been just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So let's dig into the 3 buckets that I want to talk with you about today. The first one are mindsets for successful storytelling. And if you hear some pages rattling in the background, it's because I have a few notes on some of my pages and I want to make sure that I cover them. So there are 5 essential mindsets, at least in my book there are. And the first one is we're going to start with the foundation, which is, what is the definition of a story? And it's important to understand the definitions and ways you can think about the definitions because that will shape your whole thinking about storytelling and then the applications and how you use storytelling. So the dictionary is very simple. It's an account of incidents or events. It's a statement. It's an intrigue or a plot of narrative or some dramatic work. So that talks about what. But here's the definition that I love most about storytelling. A story is an act of communication that triggers the senses, allowing the listener to quickly and easily internalize the information, understand it, make it meaningful, and even retell it. What I love about that definition is that it focuses on the experience of a story and the results that happen. I didn't come up with this on my own. This was really influenced by my good friend Peggy, who worked at an executive position at Walt Disney Imagineering many years ago. And we talked about this and she gave me some pieces and I added some other pieces, and this is the definition that I like to use. Again, because it speaks to experience and the results. So that means storytelling is an event and it's an experience. What's the experience you want your audience to have? What do you want your listeners to do? And you have to design the story for that. So in the middle between event and experience, what encapsulates all of this is that storytelling is both an art and a science. I've said since about the year 2000 that storytelling is art in the air. In other words, it's a creative act. It's a creative expression. The issue is that when you tell it orally, it just resonates with people, but you can't see it. It's sort of invisible. That's why I call it art in the air. But there's also a science to it, and that's the neuroscience of storytelling, which is like totally taken off these days. We have so much great research about it. And the first book to start with to understand the neuroscience of storytelling is Kendall Haven's book, Story Proof. And then there's the work of neuroscientist Yuri Hasson, that's Hasson, and also another neuroscientist and economist, Paul Zak, and that's spelled Z as in zebra, A-C-K. And you can Google Hasson's work and Zak's work, and you have a good foundation for the neuroscience of storytelling. And what this really is showing us is that because storytelling is an experience, that there's a dynamic to it. In other words, I tell a story, it sparks a story in you, and so there's a dynamic relationship that's going back and forth between us. And that storytelling is a co-created experience for the audience, because as you're telling the story, they're internalizing it in their minds, filling in details from their own personal experience. So that's why we say it's a co-created experience. And there are actually 3 levels of storytelling. There's transactional storytelling. This is all applies to business. Transactional storytelling, relational storytelling, and then transformational storytelling. Now, transactional storytelling is where many businesses start. This is the idea of, oh, I'll tell you a story and you'll buy my product. But you know what? That's not sustainable, because your customers will figure out pretty quickly that you're just telling them a story so that you'll buy their product. So we need to, as practitioners, and even as business people, we need to move people away from transactional storytelling to relational storytelling, because that's more sustainable. This is where you're sharing a story, you're listening to their stories in return, and you're creating a connection and a longer-term relationship. And then the third level is transformational, because once you have the relationship set up, then you can talk about, oh, let's together, create some change. Right? So that's transformational. So those are 3 ways to think about storytelling as you are doing your storytelling practice or as you are in business. So basically what this means is that storytelling is not a push technology. Oh, here, let me tell you things. And that's why I don't even kind of like the word storytelling, although there's not really a good substitute for it. But it conjures a picture up in our minds of, oh, let me tell you a story. Right? When actually, when I share a story, I'm really pulling you into my world. So it's a pull technology and not a push technology. Once you make that essential shift in your mind, all of a sudden, all kinds of worlds open up to you, and all kinds of different ways to apply storytelling emerges. So that's the third mindset. The fourth mindset is about the hero's journey. Now, this is my particular thing, right? I say it's my particular thing because many people just say, oh, everything is the hero's journey. I mean, I don't need to think about anything anymore. Every story is about the hero's journey. And I say, wait, not so fast. So how this sort of evolved is that you have Vladimir Prop from the Russian School of Folklore in the 1920s, who wrote the book, The Morphology of the Folktale. And let me tell you, those Russian folklorists from the 1920s were kick-butt folklorists. They contributed so much to the field of folklore. And what Prop did is he took the folktale and made a grammar of it, so we could see what the constituent parts were and how they move around. Now, Jung was also hanging out here, and his take on the fairy tale and the folk tale was, oh, it's really an integration that happens when the prince and the princess marry and they live happily ever after. It's really about the integration of the male and the female, the sacred, the secular, the child, adult. It's a story of maturing from juvenile into adulthood. And then Joseph Campbell comes along and takes a look at myths all across the globe. And from that, he comes up with his formula that is officially called the hero's journey. And these are the stages which we go through. And then that was taken by Christopher Vogler, a screenwriter in Hollywood. And he wrote a book, The Writer's Journey. And now that's the formula that all Hollywood movie studios use to make sure their movies are commercially successful. Right, financially successful. But the end result is that now we have this monomyth, like we're surrounded. It's the only story we hear are the hero's journey. But you know what? After you transition from being a young person into adulthood, well, what then? Right? What happens then? Well, here, now we need to hear stories of wise rulers and visionary kings and inspiring queens and underdog tricksters and transformational magicians and awe-inspiring saints. But we find these stories are scarce. And part of my work when I work with leaders is to find these missing stories and actually start building into their repertoire. Because this is what people in organizations need to hear. And I'm even going to go so far as to say that, yeah, these stories are scarce, and their absence, perhaps, is what is creating the world we live in today. So this is not a something to do, it's a something to think about, right? So this is my take on the hero's journey. Not everybody agrees with me. You don't have to agree with me, but I want to get you thinking about it. All right, what's next? Okay, so the fifth principle, the fifth mindset is that storytelling has two sides to it. It's like two sides of the same coin. There's the telling and then there's the listening. And a lot of my work when I work in organizations is on the listening part, how to deliberately evoke a story from someone and how to deliberately listen to it in a particular way so that you get maximum value from it. And actually, the teller and the listener get maximum value from it. That's your highest leverage point, is listening. And if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about and why it's important, you can go listen to my TED Talk where I share why story listening is so powerful and the 3-step process that you can use to story listen. And so that's out there in the public domain. Go grab it, and I hope it helps you. Okay, so how are we doing? Next, best practices, some of what we've learned over 20 years. And there are 4 best practices that I think every business storyteller and every business interested in storytelling sort of needs to master. And some of this you might have already mastered, you've already gotten, and maybe some of it, there's some upgrades you can do. So the first best practice is to figure out what stories any organization needs to tell. Now, everybody has their own list, right? And the reason we have our own list is because every client I ever worked with, first question they ask me is, well, what stories do I need to tell? Because I'm kind of lost. I'm confused about it. So I've come up with my 7 signature stories, but there are other lists. Annette Simmons has hers, Steve Denning has his, Paul Smith has his. And, go explore all of them. And the best practice here is to create the list that makes the most sense for you and your clients. So another best practice to develop is your approach to story crafting, right? So which approach are you going to take? And there are basically 4. One is a structural approach. Here's the formula, just fill out the formula and you'll always tell a good story. That's what all of my clients want. But I take the grammar approach. Here are all the constituent elements. Which way do you want to tell the story? How do you want to rearrange these so that they work for you? Because they're the one that has to tell them, by the way. But I also use modeling. Here's a story I'm going to tell, or here's a written story that we're going to use, and let's pick it apart, analyze it, understand it, figure out what's working, and also what to hone, what to upgrade in it. Same way with prompting. Here's a picture. Here's a physical something physical, like a physical item, or here's a story starter. Tell me about a time when, and you prompt the story out of them, and then you analyze it, diagram, and you recraft it or hone it. And then the fourth one is my main method, which is growing a story. And this is, I learned through Doug Lippman, and I know he's one of your speakers too during the conference, and it's very experiential. And what happens when you use this process, the person telling the story learns story crafting in real time with the trained listener. So you get immediate audience feedback, and the audience feedback tells you what's working and what's not working and how you want to craft the story. So it's really, really great. And so the best practice for you is to, determine the best approach that works for you, that resonates the best with you, because there's no one right way. There's only the right way for you. I will say that the Grow a Story method is the dominant one for many of us in the field of business storytelling. And also that's the dominant teaching method for story performers to develop a story and then be able to tell it really well. So there's that. And there's also the story listening part of that and the story coaching part of that. So here are two of Doug's books that will help you step by step through that process. First one is Improving Your Storytelling, and the other one is The Storytelling Coach. I love this because it's very organic. Ownership of the story remains with the person, not with me. So I'm not saying do this, do that, right? I'm helping them, I'm facilitating them finding the best way to tell their own story in their authentic voice with their own personal style. And that builds like amazing confidence in them. And that's my goal. All right, so where are we now? Story applications. That's another best practice you have to develop is where do you want to use storytelling in business? And there are 9 business functions. These are either examples of companies that are doing this kind of storytelling or companies that I've worked with and I've helped them in these areas. And again, the point is to develop your best practices for these, like maybe supply chain storytelling, stories about your vendors and partners. Maybe that's a lot of fun for you. Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's sales and fundraising. You have your own particular interests, and you will develop the story applications that you like to focus on best. And here you go. These are all the different kinds of projects within a company where storytelling can be applied. And the main point I want to say, I want to make about this, 2 things. First of all, each one of these projects, there's a slightly different process and method that you're going to use to upgrade storytelling or to bring storytelling into an organization. So leadership development storytelling is different than talent retention storytelling or data storytelling. So you will develop your best practices and hopefully help each other out, right? As you are developing your best practices. That's what we've been able to do here in the United States, is share with our colleagues what we're discovering and learning so that we can all get better. The second point is to choose a purpose for the storytelling. So is the project about, well, what are these stories really trying to tell us? So that's a reflection activity. Or are we doing the story project so that we in some way want to inspire people to take action? Sometimes it's both, but understanding the purpose will help you be a better business storyteller or a better business person applying storytelling to your organization. All right, so we're going along here at a clip. And the third bucket is resources. What resources can I share with you to help you excel? So here I've got several. And the title is a link. So click on that link and you will get to the page where you can download all of these. The first one is a visual bibliography. So I've taken photographs of all the best books that I think are really great in the field to help you along, right? Because sometimes it's hard to know which books are really great and which ones are just okay. So I've created my favorite list for you that I think is most powerful. And then you can download my 7 signature stories tools as a way to help you get started developing your own. And then there's the story application tool. And this is a little bit more from the slides that I just shared with you to help you think through the applications and what you want to do with them and how you want to approach them. And then I have also a link here, my Just Story Curation. Now, for many years, I have searched the internet for all the best articles I could find on business storytelling. And I put them into this platform, the Just Story Curation. It's 2,000 plus articles. I've reviewed every single article. And these are evergreen articles. In other words, the information that they share stands the test of time, right? So they won't go out of style, I don't think. And it's completely free. And it's also searchable. And so go click on the link and so explore all of the knowledge there that is waiting for you so that you can be just an amazing business storyteller, either in your business or as a practitioner. There's another one that I'm going to add. So there's a number 5 that's not on this slide, but you'll see it when you follow the link. And that is a 2-page piece, a 2-page document on the ethics of business storytelling, just to help you, navigate some different kinds of troubling waters, so to speak. So how do you think really well about business storytelling and do it in an ethical way? So there's that. And we're done, right? So I've got 4 minutes left. This is perfect. And so I want to share with you a couple remaining things. First of all, I'd love for you to connect with me. I love connecting with other business storytelling professionals, particularly in other countries. You can sign up for my newsletter. That's a good way to keep up with what I'm doing. And I always try to give the tips and tools to help people in their storytelling in business. I also have an online class that I'm teaching that's coming up. Actually, by the time you hear this recording, the class will have already started, but you should check and see if you can join it. It's a 9-week course. It's Foundations of Business Storytelling, so it's skill-based and application-based. And it's asynchronous. That means anybody, anywhere in the world can take the class because you will listen to the tutorials, you'll do the assignments, you'll interact online on various platforms with others in the class so you learn even more. And it's very, very reasonable. So check that out. And I'm offering it again, I think in April, but if you can't make it this time. Or send me an email if you have a question. Right? I'm always happy to help, and I'd love to hear from you. So here we come to my most favorite quote of all time about business. Actually, storytelling in general, but I like to use it a lot in business. And this is from the author Salman Rushdie. And the quote is this: "Those who do not have the power over the story that dominates their lives, the power to retell it, to rethink it, to deconstruct it, to joke about it, and to change it as the times change, they truly are powerless because they cannot think new thoughts." Now, I like this quote because it really speaks to the power of storytelling, but the agency that we have over the stories in our lives and how we can always upgrade them, transform them, get better, because stories help us learn better how to live life. It's a way to share our wisdom and the little things we've learned along the way. It's a way of expanding who we are and our knowledge and our understanding of life. And isn't that what life is all about? it's just getting better and growing. And so this is a reminder, no matter where you are in your life, no matter if you're in business or not, it doesn't matter. This is an essential truth. And so I share that with you so you can continue to think about that also and how it applies to your work. At that, we are done. And I want to say, keep going and story on. All right. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to connecting with you, and welcome to the business storytelling community. All right. Bye for now.